Okay.
This is my story.
This is my story.
This is my story.
This is my story.
Is it a good angle? I think so.
This is my story.
This is my story.
Yay.
This is my story.
Sorry.
This is my story.
This is my story. My name is Harold Bottauer. Probably see me on first service greeting people when they come in the door. I serve as an elder. I teach welding workers. And we were looking for a church home. And we came in here, and the service at that time, 15, 20 years ago, the wife says, I felt just like I was going back home. She says, this is going to be our church. And so that's how we found ACC. Wife and I have 3 children, and the oldest is Melissa, then David, and then Heather. And of those 3, they give us 12 grandchildren. And the grandchildren now have given us 4 or 5 great-grandchildren. I might be wrong on the 5, but I know they're coming all the time. For that was with the Singer Corporation, and they had the simulator down in Florida, and it was used for training the Apollo astronauts. And I worked that for 11 years down there for the entire Apollo program. So we maintain the simulators, plus we help train NASA on how to operate the simulator and fly the command module. Because back then, the FAA had to certify a flight instructor to be able to man a simulator. Well, a lot of the NASA people never knew a thing about flying, and they were just by decree called a flight instructor. So we kind of backed them up and showed them and taught them how to operate. And we got a hands-on contact with every one of the Apollo astronauts, and that to me was just fantastic. What a job to have. Something that stuck with me though all these years. We had just trained the first Apollo crew that had to go out on a pad and do a plugs out test is what they called it. And that was the crew, Gus Grissom, Roger B. Chaffee, and Ed White. And they burned up in the fire. That's where they had the fire in the command module. They couldn't get out because the door was bolted on, and a whole bunch of modifications went in after that so that they could have a quick access. I like to take pictures. I took a lot of pictures when we'd go on vacations, and back then they either photographs or 35 millimeter slides. And I've been taking all of these pictures that we've accumulated and scanning them into the computer, and then from the computer, I'm burning them onto CDs and DVDs and handing them out to the people that were in those pictures so that they'll have memories. I had to ask my wife that one, and she says, you got to be kidding. And she says, it's your number 1. And I says, my number 1? She says, that's what you used to always ask for. And it was bologna, peanut butter, mayonnaise, mustard, lettuce, and I think I've left something out, and bread.
Do you still eat that?
Not very often. In fact, I had to be reminded. Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Oh, I know it. She said she hated making it, but that used to be my favorite sandwich.
How did you come up with that combination?
I don't know. It's just everything I thought I'd like on a sandwich. Lately, it's Subway sandwiches, but back then that was. She says you even called it your number 1. I won't get rid of anything. I'm not a hoarder, but if it comes to electrical and electronics, I get stuff, and coming up through the generations, audio products and stuff have evolved quite a bit. And I've got some of the first ones that ever came out, and they're not worth a darn nowadays. But I remembered back then how sought after everything was. And I just can't get rid of it. I just have memories of all of these things. And also I got a lot of things that I would bring home that's broke and to go to repair for people. And if I didn't get it fixed, I'd let them know. And they said, well, then just throw it away. Well, I hang on to it, which is kind of driving my wife nuts. It would have to be Shalimar perfume that I got for my wife years ago, and I really like it. When I worked down at International Paper in Shelbyville, there's a QC lady that worked on the line that I was running, and she always had a good fragrance about her. And she said, I asked her, I says, it's such a good smell. I says, what is it, if you don't mind telling me? She says, it's called Red Dog. I said, Red Dog? I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. I bought it for my wife, and she put it on, and it smelled like a garbage can. Because they say certain fragrances don't go with some women, but that's why I stuck with Shalimar. Shalimar stays real good with time. It's a very fresh smell. Garbage. I don't like the garbage can. I don't like smelling it. It's offensive to me. We had pets when we had children at home, and once the children left the home, we stopped having pets. But the last one we had was for our youngest daughter, and it was a Siberian Husky, blue eyes, and we really liked the dog. It was real friendly. In fact, I was told, if you want a watchdog, don't get a Husky because they love everybody. Back in the 60s, we were in Florida, and I liked Star Trek, the original series that came out. In fact, once they started changing it, I didn't care for it as much. But the original series of Star Trek, in fact, I liked it so well that I bought a small Christmas tree, and I started decorating it with Star Trek ornaments that are sold at Christmas time. And every year a new ornament would come out, and a wife would pick me up one for a Christmas gift. I thought about that one, and I think it would have to be action-adventure, because the wife and I, we've had like a wanderlust in us, and we like to travel a lot. So we like to go new places. I have no idea who would be playing that role. We always wanted to go to the Holy Land. The problem there was, with all the wars and stuff going on and hostage taking, we just felt a little bit uncomfortable. And now that we're not worried about, we're getting too old to be worried about being a hostage, we're thinking that now they got another war going. If it could be anyone, I'd like to be Jesus, because I get to talk to him, ask him questions, and he'd just inspire the devil out of me. I mean, literally get rid of the devil and let the Holy Ghost show through. I would probably ask, how can eternity go forever? Because we are finite. And all the science and stuff that I've had as background, there's always a start. Nothing lasts forever. And I would like to find out how that can be. Helping others to find God. I get a lot of enjoyment out of planning and hosting parties and get-togethers. And it just makes me feel good to know that we get people together and have a good time and enjoy each other with fellowship. God finally brought my wife to me, Ty. And how we met is just unbelievable. I was standing up for a best friend down in Florida, he getting married. And when we left, I was with another friend, and I said, well, what are we going to do? It's still early in the evening. And he says, well, I know of a party going on at the Sons of Italy Club there in St. Pete. And I said, what's that? He said, it's a Catholic youth organization. And he says, boy meet girl. I said, well, okay, we'll go there. Well, I went in there, and I think I must have danced with every woman there. And at the very end, he came up to me. He says, Harold. I said, what? He says, I've met this redhead. I really like her. He says, but she's brought a girlfriend. He says, and I probably can't go out with her unless maybe you go with the girlfriend. So I asked the girl to dance 57 years later. And we were the only two Protestants in the group. Can you believe it? I couldn't. I had so many one-time dates that never went anywhere down there. I figured it's not going to be for me. I was almost 26 and she was 24. We met February 12th and married July 2nd, same year. We both knew. And that's why I said it's been a good memory for me, because God had to arrange it, because we knew immediately that we found each other. And there was never any doubt. I was talking to Ty about that. And we raised a family, and families have problems. And she says, generationally, she says, things that have broken our heart through the years, she said, that's probably our worst memories. And it's just problems that kids have, families have, those type of things. I can't really put my finger on one particular one, because there's been some bad ones. Back in 2012, that's after I was diagnosed with leukemia, we had a mission trip down to Haiti. And it's an eye-opener if you ever go on a mission trip to a third world country, what these people are going through. Haiti is poor. We went down there, and I wired a church, and they were building pews and stuff. But what we saw down there, it just blew you away, what the little children were going through. When we'd stop to eat, we'd have a sack lunch, and they would come up to us and just stand there and stare at us. And in your heart, you just had to do something. We had like a little fruit cup with jello in it, or pudding. And we'd give it to one of the little girls, and she had a little girlfriend beside her. And she took the cup and poured half in her hand, and the little girl licked out of her hand the pudding. And I thought, oh my gosh. And they were all hungry. Mm-hmm. And so that really opened my eyes. And then when we came back from that trip, when it got possible to have a new leader for missions, I volunteered for it and loved it ever since. You have to have a heart for missions to join the team. We meet the fourth Sunday of every month, and we do it after first service, 11 o'clock. They all need love, and they need you to share with them. And you never know where they're coming from and what their problems are. And the best thing to do is just to talk with them and try to get some kind of a idea, so then you'll know how to take care of them. My mom and dad took us to First Baptist Church on West Prairie Street, Decatur. And then all of a sudden, they stopped going to church. But the neighbor lady, Helen and George Hurt, across the street, they took us, 3 kids. There wasn't 4 then, there was us 3. And they took us to church. And then our Sunday school teacher at First Baptist, she had a group, 10 or 12, go in and be baptized as a group. So that's who led me to Jesus. It was the church plus the neighbor lady kept us going. I was volunteering down there at the Central Illinois auction place. We were serving food to people, customers, and I had an appointment with a lung doctor for my CPAP, breathing stuff, whatever they call that. And it was about in the middle of the afternoon, and I told Mike Cox, I says, hey, I got a doctor's appointment, but I can blow it off. We're busy down here. And Mike told me, he says, no, you got an appointment, you go ahead and go. So I went, and I went in and saw her, and she says, Harold, the test that you've had, she says, you have a lot of leg kicking movements when you had your CPAP study. She said, that could be low iron. She says, why don't you have a blood test? And I says, well, okay, are you going to schedule it? She says, well, since you're already here, why don't you just go by the lab and have a blood test? By the time I got home, the phone was ringing off the hook. And they said my platelets were panic level low. And I says, well, what in the devil are platelets? And she says, well, I don't want to go into that. She says, but you come back in and just go to the emergency room. Don't even go to the registration desk. She said, we'll be waiting for you. She says, and don't bump your head. And I says, why is that? She says, because if you'd happen to cut yourself, she said, you're going to bleed bad. And so I said, well, okay. So I went down there and I took my my test. And all of a sudden a doctor came in and he says, Harold, you got leukemia. And he says, I happen to be on call. He says, and I'm the best doctor that you need for this time. He was a phlebotomist. And I says, well, you've got the wrong guy. I don't have leukemia. And he says, yeah, I'm afraid you do. And I says, well, what happens? And he says, well, if your blats are like 10 or 15 below, he says, I can treat you as an outpatient. He says, if they're higher than that, you're going to have to go in and have chemo. And I said, but I'm fine. I'm going to go place a battery in God's Shoulder of Love work van right now. And he says, well, let's just wait and see. And he came back in. He said, Harold, your blats are 52%. He says, you're going straight into a treatment. And had Mike not told me to go ahead and go, had the lady, female doctor, not told me to go ahead and have a blood test, and with Dr. Cruzan not been there on call that time, and he gave me the treatment right off the bat, and he got me straightened out. I had leukemia, I had esophageal cancer, I had small cell in my esophagus, and I had from acid in the stomach. It burnt the top of where you had a valve there to shut off for regurgitation. And I forget the name of that one right there. And then I had, when they took out my esophagus, I had lymph nodes that were cancerous, and they took out 13 lymph nodes.
And none of that was related to leukemia. Those are separate cancers?
These are all 4 separate cancers, yes. They couldn't believe that I had a small cell in the esophagus and didn't have anything in my lungs, because he said small cell in the esophagus always comes from your lungs. And I have no lung cancer. I am cancer-free. I was diagnosed with leukemia back in February 2012, and that's 14 years now. And because God had a hand in all of this, it always makes me wonder, what has he got in store for me to bring me through all this? There's got to be something. And that's another question I'd probably ask him if I was sitting at dinner with him. What have you got in store? What do I still need to do? Never give up. Never give up, because no matter how bad things look, or prognosis, that there's a reason for it, and just survive through it. I've been blessed with the attitude to where if I can't control it, I don't have to worry about it. And my wife, she frets over a lot of things and gets upset, concerns. And I told her, I says, if you can do something about it, go 100%. Let's go get it done. And if you can't, I said, no matter what you do, it's not going to happen. It won't work. And it's because of that kind of an attitude. If I can do something, I'm going to do it. I'd stay with it until it's done. But if I can't, I just accept it. And I know when I first found out I had leukemia, the wife and I had some tearful moments up in the hospital room because it hit us just like that. But then from then on, I knew I was in good hands. The elders came out and laid hands on me there in the hospital room. We had a good prayer. So I figured, okay, go for it.